What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Performance Marketing Minds, brought to you by Outbrain Direct Response. I'm your host, Joe Addona, and today we've got a pretty special one. We've got the founder of MediaForce, Eyal Moshe, and the CRO, David Resnik, hopping on the podcast. And it's a very unique conversation. I don't think Eyal has ever done a podcast, which is crazy for how big MediaForce is and the impact they've had in the digital marketing and specifically performance landscape over the last 10, 15 years. So extremely grateful, really unique conversation, and learned a ton about what they're doing in terms of AI, how they think about managing large business teams and different types of changing competitive landscapes. Really a lot to learn, especially if you're a independent affiliate or smaller agency. These guys do a lot. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with the two legends of MediaForce. Okay, well, let's do this. This is a unique one because I've got the founder and CEO and the CRO on the same podcast. So I'll start it off with actually a fun question. What do you guys disagree with the most day to day in business?
Actually, arguing with David is fun. It's like one of my hobbies, I have to say. But seriously, I think we argue quite well. To give you one recent example, we just discussed, we're doing some things on Google with search and the future of search with AI taking over and the AI overview. And I am, coming from a more performance DNA, like there are opportunities right now. Let's explore them. Let's leverage. Let's jump on the opportunities. And David balances me quite well, to be honest. Thinking, wait, let's think about the future, the landscape in the next 3-5 years. Where is it going? Do we want to make these investments? Or I think we balance each other quite well. And it's fun to argue.
No, it's always a good exercise. I think in general, AI tends to think a couple of years down the road while we're trying to obviously build the business that we have today. So it's always a good balance. I mean, there's always new emergent things coming across the industry, and we like to be on top of it, but it's hard to sort of jump around all the time. So we do try to balance each other in terms of making sure we're looking 5 years down the road, but also what are we doing today? Are we going deeper? Are we becoming experts in the business that drives revenue, profit, but also keeping an eye on what's next?
Yeah.
So it's always a balance.
I mean, you trying to reel it in a little bit, they all trying to visualize the future, making sure that you guys still have money to operate over the next 3 years and not go fully into something.
And I think it's getting harder and harder, but just because not the arguments are getting harder and harder, but the things that are emerging are just accelerating so quickly, right? With AI and everything, all the tools we can use and the new emerging kind of platforms. It's becoming much more fun too to argue because some of the future can be pulled in quite sooner, I think, with all these tools. So,
and there is quite a significant physical distance between us, which definitely helps, to get a different perspective on things. And so I think it's working quite well.
How do you guys balance, because you're a big enough company now and you have enough resources to where you could probably build a lot of things in-house, and you have in the past, but especially in this AI landscape, and there's video creation services, there's reporting, there's different MCP servers that can optimize across all different platforms. Like, how do you guys decide, okay, we're going to build this in-house with our own tech stack, or we're actually going to look external to be able to solve some of these problems?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. And to be honest, we are not necessarily always making the right decisions. Like many times we started creating our own tools, and then we figured there is a better third-party tool, and we shouldn't be building the tool. On the other end, we've tested quite a few third-party tools before, and we realized that because our tech stack is quite unique and we have quite a few products that were built in-house with unique APIs to different other networks or interfaces, we are better off creating our own. So I feel now we are more mature. We have a better process of understanding where it makes sense to invest, where we see the potential equity value, future equity value of the product. We just recruited a CPTO, which helps us a lot with these decisions. And we believe AI is definitely changing. And like you said, on one hand, it's easy to create now tools. On the other hand, you definitely don't want to go and create each and every tool where there are good alternatives out there.
Yeah. Makes sense. I feel like, what makes more sense is if we actually take a little bit of a step back too. So MediaForce was founded in 2007, right? At least that's what I have in my notes.
Right.
For the people that don't really know you guys and know what you do, what were you trying to solve back then, that made you create this crazy performance marketing engine to what it is now? And what is and what are you guys doing differently than most people are doing? I want to know the story, and I think it's really interesting to a lot of people if they hear the story of how it was started.
Sure. So actually, fun fact, we started together with Outbrain, which is now part of TIDS in 2007. And back then, a lot of the advertising was banner-based. I remember the good old days where you were buying banners on MSN, Yahoo, and there wasn't even such a thing as native advertising. Definitely, programmatic wasn't existent back then. And on one end, it created quite a few opportunities. On the other end, it was very hard to manage. No automation, everything was manual. I remember the good old days, sending insertion orders via fax machines at 3 a.m., committing to buy through. But I remember them very well, like committing to $3 million a quarter on Yahoo.com, 300 by 250, and that's it. It's yours. I mean, whether you were able to sell it, monetize it or not, you had to pay these $3 million. And the hand was shaking, and we had to take a lot of risks. And we were among the first to do native without actually calling it native advertising. So like we bought the 300 by 250, we split them into 3 different offers, utilizing our own ad server. And it worked. It worked very well. I remember that at the beginning, publishers didn't really like it because it's like, decide whether you're an advertiser or a content recommendation, and thanks to Outbrain, which is now TIDS, we feel that they actually made it a very common thing, and suddenly everyone is speaking the same language, and long story short, I think we wanted to change how people were buying traffic from just getting clicks to generating outcomes and potentially downstream conversions, like providing actual value for our advertisers.
Do you think there was a moment in time that you guys hit a revenue milestone where you're actually saying, okay, this is working and this is something that people want for the downstream advertisers, and being able to see, okay, we're going to take this into this performance world and this is where things are going to go? Like, was it one particular client or advertiser, or was it just something that you saw and you decided, we're going all in on this?
I guess it was, we saw that the biggest effect when we started with auto insurance. I even remember the discussions with your team. I mean, back then, Outbrain wasn't really selling advertising. It was mostly content recommendation. And I remember getting a call from Outbrain. I think it was Ido Yerushalmi, is asking me a question like, do you guys think that, let's say we were able to sell you clicks for 30 cents, would you be able to buy them? And I honestly miss those days because it was very exciting, to pay for a click, and the quality we were getting from Outbrain was always like top notch, high, very high, and very high intent. Of course, in relative to the traffic channel, like to the intent of native. I mean, and that was definitely a aha moment when we started with auto insurance. Everyone was telling us, good luck, guys. I mean, there's no way. A lot of companies, a lot of people tried before. Yes, it's working great for search, but I mean, no way it's going to work for display native. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. I even remember flying to New York City to have some meetings, and people actually, try to tell me not to go that route. And I'm so happy we decided to enter this market, because we were able to do a lot of damage, and we were one of the first to actually generate high scale, high volume of leads for the auto insurance industry in the United States. And again, I really miss those days.
You guys have been around a little bit longer than me, I'm sure. I've been in here for 10 years, but you've seen more than me. And I always hear stories about those glory days, when things were easier and there wasn't as much competition, but also the inventory stack was a little bit different, and there weren't as many native networks on the publisher side, so competition wasn't as fierce there either. But it's funny because I feel like every platform mostly has gone from nice branding experience to performance advertisers and direct response advertisers really just taking over once they figure out what they can do. And it's really unique to see, and you guys being one of the first ones to do it. We're seeing now, especially since the Teads merger with Outbrain, the CTV channel start to do really well for a lot of the direct response advertisers. And it's funny because the Teads CTV platform, I think, was built really high impact, premium publisher partnerships, in-stream, non-skippable video, good stuff. But you tell a performance marketer that and they're frothing at the mouth to see what type of offer they can put there to make it work. So I think everything kind of trends to performance at the end of the day,
Yeah, definitely. And David, has been asking or basically sharing the request from advertisers. I mean, we know CTV provides, or generally TV advertising provides value. We know we were able to crack display native with our on and operated DSP, performance DSP, Genie. And basically, and again, this is me now talking about the future. I have no doubt that in a year, Genie will be trading quite a lot of CTV activity. It's already happening right now. And we also work very closely with other partners to buy CTV, performance CTV. And yes, you're right, Joe. I mean, the challenges are there. Attribution is a very big challenge with CTV. Generally, making someone who is watching news or watching different content on their TV screens, you need to get them from one medium to another medium, and it's not easy. But we are seeing already success and positive signs, and I'm pretty sure that with the right models and with the right heuristic solutions to attribution, we're gonna scale it, and I see very bright future for CTV advertising as a performance marketer, and also audio advertising, by the way. I think there is a lot of potential there.
Yeah. On the audio side, I remember going to Manscaped's office in San Diego years ago, and they were showing me the reporting from their podcast advertising, and it was Rowandex and all that crazy stuff back then. It was nuts. But you brought up a good point. I mean, you guys have such a big business now. You can probably almost work with whoever you want. You get a lot of inbound leads from people, I'm sure, as well. And what business model are you actively trying to seek out, and what ones are you kind of saying no to at the moment? It's almost a better way to saying that is like, what makes a good client to you guys sitting from your side of the table? What does one look like? And maybe what's something that you're shying away from at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we don't. I guess we don't try to shy anyone away or push anyone away, but there is sort of this common thread with our top advertisers, and typically kind of goes back to their ability to track, right? So they're able to record and kind of report back downstream performance, and for us that's gold. That's what we need for our system and our platform to better optimize, right? And so when we have partners that are able to do that and have or the ability to kind of give us a runway, right? Because we typically have 2 stages in campaign developments. Usually the first phase is like discovery, exploration. We have no idea where this campaign is going to perform, where it's going to work. So we kind of work hand in hand, try to figure out, okay, where are we going to ideally get the performance for this campaign? Once we start to see sort of our KPIs being hit, their KPIs being hit, then we can kind of move into that next phase, which is kind of the exploit phase. And that's that's the phase where we can start to see a lot more scale. But to get from explore to exploit, it does take time. It does take, losses on both sides. So the best advertisers are typically the ones that understand that it's not always going to be a home run right out of the gate. We have to understand that as well. And that does require us to have that runway to optimize, whether it's the creative, the funnel, right? The landing page, the messaging, the, value to the consumer, whatever it might be, right? It's a puzzle. And so the best advertisers typically are the ones that to have patience, can record, the full funnel, and are able to kind of report that back to us for us to use, to better manage the campaigns and move from explore to exploits.
So I really want to ask you this question, David, because the CRO role it's an interesting role to me because you have your hands in everything and nothing at the same time. You're helping plan, you're doing all these things, but especially in the world of direct response and performance media, how do you do your role effectively when there is so many things out of your control? Like you have sellers trying to close business for MediaForce to bring in deals. You have media buyers that are running the media. You have the client side that is helping with the product and upsells and landing pages, but you guys are also creating them. Like, I don't know. I'm just curious how you operate this in DR because it is hard if you're not winning, you're losing, right? Like if you're not making money, you're automatically losing money. And from a CRO standpoint, being able to, like we said in the beginning, say what is worth it in the short term versus long term, and what do I stick around with and continue to bleed from? I don't know. I just think it's a really interesting perspective and role to have, and a challenging one, I'm sure. How do you do that?
Yeah, no, it's quite the balance. I think that oftentimes we could do everything right on the media and the MediaForce side, but it doesn't end up maturing in terms of downstream performance, whether it's a specific LTV or AOV or I don't know, policy rate. So it requires this kind of delicate balance. What worked for us might not work for the partner, and vice versa. What works for the partner might not work for us, and so it's always kind of finding that right partnership and making sure that we're both on the same team. But internally, I think that we found the structure with kind of this pod structure that works best, where everyone has sort of the same incentives. So everyone who's a stakeholder in the campaign, whether it's the AM who's managing the client on day to day, or the salesperson who brought it in, to the person developing the funnels, optimizing the pages that the consumer might go through post-click. Everyone is really working hand in hand to make sure that they're optimizing the entire flow and relationship, because the worst thing that can happen is churn, right? We don't want to see advertisers go away. So they're incentivized to see how they can hit our KPIs, their KPIs, and continue to grow. And so everyone is pretty much working together in this little pod structure. But going back to your question, kind of how do you navigate through this? Because again, there's a lot of moving parts and different advertisers require different things. We try to stay as diversified as possible. It's very intentional on our side. We're not all in on auto insurance. We're not all in health and beauty. We're not all in e-com. We really try to be as diversified as possible, not just with the partners we work with, but the funnels. And so we're in comparison charts. We're in lead gen. We're in content, right? We're in so many different funnels as well as different categories that allows us kind of navigate that fluctuation that you're referring to. There's seasonality, there's just overall advertiser sensitivity. There's so much that goes into, like you said, and so we really try to both structure internally to optimize better for both sides, but also this diversification I think has helped us over the past 18 years to go through that and to really kind of work through those challenges, and it's helped. It's been beneficial for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of tees up a question I have for Eyal too. Like as a leader, when there are things like regulatory changes in the world, or there's platform policy changes, or basically anything that's going on that's out of your guys' control from a leader of an advertising technology company, right? Like think about just our work together with like Outbrain and MediaForce. Ad policy changes all the time. Publisher doesn't like something. We can't run this. Oh, now we can run this. Oh, like how do you lead through those things and communicate it to your team and also not lose your own mind? How do you go about doing that?
I really think it's a great question. I believe that every problem is an opportunity to be, and I know quite a few people say this, but I really think it's a way of thinking, and to be honest, that's exactly when performance marketers shine, because I've seen some colleagues and good friends who got alerted by changes, and then they said, okay, it's not for me. And I personally love these changes, and I mean it. I love them because they create new opportunities, basically leveling the playing field. And I think our insurance business is a good example. Just after we started, there were some changes with the TCPA and the consent that required written consent for leads, and I've seen a lot competitors just unfortunately, not being able to survive, and they couldn't adjust. And we actually saw it as an opportunity. And yes, we did suffer. We suffered quite a lot initially, but I mean, we figured it's here to stay. And if we learn how to adjust quickly and leverage this problem and try to see how we can do a bit better or more creative than the competition, there must be ways. There is a path to make this work, and that was the reality. I mean, we were able to grow since then quite significantly, and I really, sometimes I know it may sound odd, but I'm waiting for these changes. I'm waiting for, for example, one of the networks coming up with a strong policy or like a big policy change. We're not going to accept health and beauty. Great. It's great news, because it means more opportunities for our insurance business. Or we cannot accept VSLs. Great. I mean, we'll figure it out with some other. And I think, as David touched a great point in being diversified both on the advertiser and publisher side, which allows us to thrive in these situations.
Love it. That was a good answer. I mean, the diversification is crazy, because even when, a lot of people don't do it, even with performance agencies that employ a lot of people and they're very committed to just lead gen or like home services lead gen. I'm just trying to break them out of it and say, okay, even if you still want to run lead generation, maybe go into some different areas, or maybe start to fold in some e-com that has a little lead gen payout at the end of it or something like that. So it's something we try and push a lot. Not many people pick up on it too often, unfortunately, but no, that's good.
Yeah, we try to stay nimble. I mean, sometimes that could also, in some ways, be distracting, right? When you're always trying to find that next vertical or that next funnel that works well.
But on another thing David and I argue on, by the way. Yeah. Seriously, like focus. Sometimes, I want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then David is like, wait, let's focus, Eyal, let's focus. We can't do it all. So like, yeah, sorry, go ahead, David.
No, but I mean, there's certainly a common thread that allows us to kind of be nimble. I think it's part of our DNA. Both have Eyal and I started, on that with that mindset of kind of getting into new channels or new categories, just testing things out, seeing how it goes. I think the common thread though is mainly with kind of how we optimize, right? The way we structured the company in terms of the different teams. We put a lot of value in the funnel, a lot of value on the creative side of things, and of course the algo and our first party data. But a lot of our teams are structured around how do we build intent, regardless of the category, regardless of the channel. That's kind of the main thing, is just building that intent. And then if you could kind of come up with a playbook, you could utilize that across multiple categories and multiple channels. And there's usually a common thread for doing so. So that's helped. I mean, that's helped us get from auto and home and life insurance to roofing, windows, solar back in the day, mortgages, right? So we've been able to apply some of these best practices, and they tend to work.
And I think just to add on top, like, unlike search, and we started doing a search at the beginning of MediaForce, we actually create demand. So we display native advertising. Yes, it's probably lower intent than search, but at the same time, we are able to proactively sell something to someone who wasn't proactively searching for this product, which means that if we, like you mentioned, Joe, home improvement, for example, we know there is need for home improvement leads, we can create that kind of demand on the platforms we work with, which is very different than people thinking about changing their windows or I don't know, roofing, like they need some roofing help. So like, we have more control. We can impact the mindset of the users reading an article right now on CNN.com. And while they weren't proactively searching for windows, we made them think about changing the windows. And the funnel was convincing enough, so they actually decided to take action.
I think this is why it's so interesting to be on in the native space, is because it's almost like a drug. You're almost like a drug addict, It's so hard to convince somebody to do
Exactly
what you want them to do, because you're creating intent out of thin air. And this from the ad network side perspective, and working in the DR world for so long, I've always tried to understand, well, if the offer stinks, can you still convince someone to submit their information or buy it or whatever? And I just keep coming back to, it's always split down the middle, but a good funnel is always going to win. Like a good copywriting, good funnel. And that's always what I keep hearing and coming back to. And I don't know if you guys studied psychology or you employ people that are really tech savvy people that are also good with psychology, but I don't know. I've seen people get hired that are psychology majors that go into copywriting or advertising, and some of the best copywriters that I see out there, the independent copywriters, they have this really different way of thinking than a marketer, and I
For sure.
we are super important to almost have, like, you don't necessarily need the marketing background. You almost need like the psychology background to build the funnel.
Exactly. And frankly, it's becoming easier. We recently recruited 2 great employees, Claude and ChatGPT, and they have been super nice now. But seriously, we do work with internal copywriting team, and like you said, it's like understanding what drives people to take actions, because at the end of the day, it could be a fear they're having, it could be a passion they have, and you need to light it up and make them see it, or touch some sensitive points that would make someone, and it's important to remember the mindset. The mindset of the user is someone who is not proactively looking for that product. So you need to touch exactly these points and make them, be aware of the need, and then convince them to buy the product. I personally love this process. We do have great team that helps us, identify exactly these points. And seriously, like with generative AI, we were able to transform some of the learnings we have to create some custom GPTs or custom gems or whatever, like to actually build it into a system which we use. We also have our own LLM, which allows us to run sensitive IP internally without exposing to third parties.
Yeah, I have that in my house too. I run my own personal server and have my own LLMs. So I also use the public stuff, but I get it. And especially for you guys, I mean, for all businesses out there, it's kind of crazy. And, we just had a kid 7 weeks ago, and the amount of pictures of poop and baby questions I'm asked on his ChatGPT is like, I'm feeding information that is probably not good for what does. But it's like interesting. That was one of the things I wanted to ask is like, if you had these tools back in like 2019 and you had the ability to, use this type of machine learning and processes, how far ahead would you have been? And it's just crazy how far it's kind of come only in, 2-3 years now with just how things have blown up. And I'm really curious, like, where you guys, how you mentioned how you're using it now, but just how you think it's going to work in the next 3 to 5 years. We know about the creative generation. We kind of know about some data manipulation, storytelling through it and everything, but where do you see things heading in that direction, at least when it comes to like marketing and ad tech and you guys?
So David can elaborate regarding how we see it on the marketing side, but I can share that on the tech side, we are able to cherry pick the users and traffic that actually provides better value for our advertisers, much better than, like, I wish we had these tools many years back, yes, but we now see that utilizing ML and generative AI, we are able to understand the user journey better. We are able to make better predictions. At the end of the day, Genie as a bidder predicts the likelihood of a user to click or convert or take some kind of action online. And with more advanced model and with the AI and utilizing, of course, our first party data, which we have acquired since 2007, as you can imagine, significant data set. And by the way, it's an interesting, story. Recently ran some kind of analysis on the data we have, and we saw that with the tools we have today, we are able to predict way, way better than we could even in 2020. So, like, I think it will only improve and it will only become better. And yes, we are doing it also on the marketing side, David.
Yeah, I mean, for me though, I'm more excited about kind of the impact it might have for some of our advertisers. Just looking at what we're constrained with today and some of the restrictions we have, a lot of it's based on, hey, we can't take leads after hours. We can't take leads on the weekends. There's nobody in the call center, right? So if you think about agentic AI and the ability to service consumers 24/7, right? No matter what day of the week, they could sell policy, they could sell, whatever might be insurance, purely through this agentic AI, and have from step one to all the way to the end, they can have purely digital experience. That for us opens up so much more capacity, or it opens up capacity for them, which translates to more budget for us. So I'm excited about that, how it impacts our partners and our advertisers with their ability to service their clients and the customers we send them. Because that just unlocks a lot more for us in terms of the budgeting and I imagine performance, right? So to me, that's exciting, especially if we look at that use case for insurance in the auto insurance space, right? I see a world where everything's purely driven through this agentic AI experience, and you're able to kind of give a policy within minutes, maybe,
Yeah,
That's certainly going to unlock a lot of potential for both sides.
I agree. One of the companies that I've helped consult for over the years is a company called Vita, and they do agentic AI, all voice. They're ex-telecom founders, and it's pretty serious. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like they work a lot in the lead gen space, and it's kind of crazy how much it, at least from the beginning, when you are openly honest that like this is an AI you're talking to, what type of information the consumer gives you, because more willing to like, I'm not talking to David and Eyal, I'm talking to like Joe
Exactly.
who's not going to judge me or not care what I have to say or how much debt I'm in or how overweight I am or all this stuff. And what we've seen is the people that lean into it, give this like AI persona and things like that, the people on the calls are more willing to like share the information and be like, all right, cool, I'm done. So I totally agree. And to the point of in the home services niche, you're eventually trying to get down to some window repair company, right? Or some gutter company. That's where this is going. But for the really small businesses, what happens if the guy's on the roof? He's not going to answer the cell phone. So how do you integrate that lead? How do you schedule the at-home visit and appointment? And how do you ultimately track it as a lead for you guys that fuels the business? Like a couple more of those a day just by this AI voice taking you through the whole step-by-step process. I just completely agree.
Yeah.
It was a total game changer over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and then the application could be across so many different categories for sure. But the funnels that require some call center operation with hundreds of seats, right? Thousands of seats. They're constrained by sort of the hours and by a lot of different just operational issues, right? So this should open up a lot more capacity.
For sure. Well, we've been kind of jamming for like 35 minutes, I think. I don't really know the time. What do you guys want to leave us with? Like we talked about the last 3 to 5 years. I guess just what are you most excited for? I think 2026 is going to be a year that we're back on the uptrend and the upswing in like the economy, the ad tech world. People start to use some of these tools to enable them more. But I guess how do you guys want to leave this off?
I think it reminds me the first few days where we had the integration, the RTB integration with Outbrain, and it was new both to us and to Outbrain, and when I got the first call, I think it was in 2018 from Guy Agur, and it was like, Eyal, do you realize you just spent yesterday $30,000? And we were, yes. And are you sure the performance is there? And to be honest with you, we spent hours reviewing thousands of lines in our log files because it's all programmatic. Remember, it's new. It's nothing like we had to know that we didn't overbid. We didn't overpredict. Like we had to review quite a few things, and it was very exciting. It was very exciting. I remember that kind of excitement, and I remember I was quite nervous too because it wasn't a one-off thing. It was like on a daily basis.
Guy, you're calling you get nervous. So that's
Exactly. And you're also thankful for the fact he just called you and it didn't show up, here in the office. So like, so it's like, yeah, for sure. But like really, it was very exciting, and I think we are gonna see more and more of this excitement in 2026. You mentioned CTV, for sure. These are the yes, early success is there, but I think there will be a moment where we will know, okay, that's like it is for real. It's working. It's performing. Like we're able to spend a lot more, identifying the users. And yes, we'll need to figure out some kind of attribution issues, like I mentioned. Potentially not being able to track one to one, probably doing some heuristics with households or whatever. But it's going to work. I know it for sure. And I'm very excited. Like we have our own creative studio here in MediaForce, and like yes, we utilize a lot of generative AI, but still we have like a big physical studio, and we see a lot of success when we combine the studio with agentic AI. So like even here, I think it's like something that we will do more and more and see and work closely with kids. Definitely, we see the value and we know the kind of access you guys have to premium CTV supply, which really makes me excited about it. I think we can do a lot more together and grow just like we did at the beginning of the way with programmatic, grow hand in hand together.
It seems like the dawn of at least a little bit of a new stepping stone, I think, for, our partnership together, but just in general, the industry, like TV Scientific getting acquired by Pinterest.
Exactly.
People understand it's here. I was on a call with someone a couple weeks ago, big in the CTV space, probably spends $200,000 to $400,000 a day at peak on CTV. I'm sitting there, my mind's blown. Like, what are you talking about? And he just told me, you stepped in a pile of shit, but a good pile of shit. So finally, at the time where this is working, a couple years ago, it really wasn't at the point where this made a lot of sense, but
exactly
something has changed on the tech.
Joe, I definitely, and it reminds me the early days of Google AdWords. Everyone had to exclude display by default. Like no one was buying display, and it was like, don't even try this traffic. And exactly that's when we identified it as an opportunity. And I think it's happening here as well. Like people say, yes, CTV, it's great, but more for awareness, more for brand advertisers. But that's exactly when we understand there is a lot potential for performance DR advertisers, and we're gonna do some big damage there.
Let's do it.
Yalla.
Well, you guys, I really appreciate it. It's crazy because I didn't really know the whole story with you guys, and I knew you guys have been partners for a while with Outbrain, and I know the little its and bits and little pieces and stuff, but it's kind of crazy looking back all those years ago and now being here for that you're still here. So we're
yeah, for sure. But thank you so much. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
We had a pleasure. Talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.